god, he's going to go around the inside. He's going to send it. He's taking the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix on the last lap. Matt Turner takes the win in a remarkable race. We have teammates coming together. How devastating!
Good afternoon, evening, and morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the iFormula League. This is Season 3 of the F2, round number 4 here at the Autodromo Inso Edino Ferrari, also known more commonly as Emilia. I am your commentator here, Alyssa Long, and I am joined by my co-commentator for the evening, Anthony Wallace. Introduce yourself. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We are very excited to see what these guys can do. And as always, we're expecting some amazing close racing. We've seen through a couple of these rounds so far, you know, our championship contenders, Carlos Catal has a knack of finishing second place anywhere in the grid, so even if he doesn't qualify very well, expect him to have a good race. And then also the likes of Cesar Cabral with back-to-back wins, as well as I'm forgetting names. Chris Byram, that was it. Sorry, Chris. Apologies, my friend. Yeah, Chris Byram also looking to make some moves here, as well. I mean, in terms of results, you know, Cesar Cabral at the moment is starting to make things look, I wouldn't say easy. I think that's the wrong word, but his tactics are definitely one that puts him above probably quite a few others, especially considering he seems to get in a few incidents but manages to make a lot out of it. I'm not sure how closely you've been following in with the F2 league, but it seems like Cesar has a knack of being able to just make the most of every situation.
Yeah, I missed last week at Suzuka, but I did watch his win in his home country of Brazil. He maybe wasn't top 2 speed there, but he made the most of what he was presented with. Some people had some accidents in front of him. He recovered from a few mistakes and got the win in the end. So a little bit of luck, a lot of talent, clearly, and it's got him looking pretty good so far at the start of the season. But he's got a lot of competition. Looks like Chris Byram has turned it on so far in this session. We've also got Lewis Archer turned it on, and Carlos Catal, he's getting there. He's had a few spins in early qualifying that we might have missed due to some technical difficulties, but he was laying down some hot laps before he got into a little trouble.
Yeah, and just as you say that, he does improve, doing a 1 minute 30.6, puts him up into P4. So, I mean, in terms of what Catal's going to be looking for, I mean, obviously a win is going to be great. It would be his first win here in the iFormula League, at least in terms of F2 results. And it's going to put him a long way up in taking the fight to Cesar Cabral for the championship as well. And then Cesar Cabral, again, going to be looking to get his 3rd win in a row and sort of try to run away with the championship Lewis Hamilton style. You know, just go out and win every race, and hopefully you can just extend the gap. So if you do have an unfortunate racer or there, you've got such a big of a gap, it's not going to matter that much. Although the likes of Chris Byram, Lewis Archer are all going to make that incredibly difficult. Lewis Archer also missing the first round, so his actual championship standing points may not reflect his actual pace here, but he seems to always be up there battling for you know, top 2, top 3 quite consistently with the likes of Cabral, Byram and Catal, providing none of those guys have any mistakes. But
yeah, Yeah, there's a reason Lewis Archer is defending champion. His last season performance was impressive. He picked up the majority of the wins. He did the Lewis Hamilton a few times and would pull away from the field and just cruise to a well, it looked to be an easy victory. It's never easy, but he made it look easy sometimes. And I know with him missing the first race, being behind in points, that's just going to give him more motivation to go out there and try harder. And he runs a team, I think, in all 3 IFL leagues, and his teams always perform well. And he puts in a lot of work on the track and off the track, making setups and getting his team and himself ready for the race. And so I always expect him to be competing for the podium, if not the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the one thing I will say is, obviously, looking at a couple of the past season results before I started broadcasting for the IFL, and looking at Lewis Archer's results and hearing he was coming into the Formula 2 season as defending champion, it's one of those things that you sort of look at his pace and you're wondering whether or not he's going to be able to keep up with the likes of the newer guys. Carlos Guitao having quite a bit of experience under his belt, as well as Cesar Cabral as well. All of those guys new to the series, but definitely looking to compete with some of the old guard, as it were, from seasons 1 and 2. And, you know, it's always one of those things that I think it plays in your mind a little bit. I know Lewis mentioned it to me, I think it was one of his first races back. I think he finished on a podium, and we were talking about it in a post-race interview, and he was really looking forward to battling some of the older guys that he'd raced with quite a few times, and ended up actually battling a lot of the newer guys and not really knowing how they drive. I think it makes it a little bit harder for yourself as a driver to sort of attack and defend in the way that you could against the likes of, Chris Byram, for example, if you've had experience racing with him. And I'm not sure if you feel the same in some of the other leagues or any other races you've been in, but I know I find that as well from some league racing that I've done before, is you learn the drivers that are in that league, and you learn how you can race with certain drivers. And it may provide you more of an insight into, you may find places where they're weaker that can give you the advantage and can really help you attack, or vice versa, places that you're stronger than them, which will give you an advantage when defending. I wonder if that does play into the mind a little bit when these drivers are out there in the race.
Yeah, definitely it has to. With him coming back expecting to race, like you said, the guys he raced last season, this season, he's been kind of presented with a lot of talent, and he wasn't racing last season. And you do pick up things, they teach you something, and you learn from them when you're racing with these guys. And it's like in the race, you race with a guy all race, and you pick up his driving style, where he goes in this corner, that corner, and that's the season is kind of like a long race where each race is a new corner, and so you get used to racing these same guys, and as you get to know them, they get to know you. You know where you can send the car and expect where they're gonna defend or where they're gonna attack, and that just really for us makes it even better racing, and it makes even better racing for those guys. I've done the IFL, and I wasn't full time last year, but the people I raced against, I seem to always be racing against. And if it wasn't really necessary for the win, but you get to race those guys week in, week out, and there's little rivalries you form, and you're always seeing the back of that car. You're like, man, this week I want to be in front of that guy,
Yeah, absolutely. I know there was a lot of drama going on at the start of the IFL season between, I think it was Kuda and the Lumos guys. There was a lot of back and forth in the various sort of channels we've got here. A lot of stuff that I was worried we'd see go public and out into the racetrack, but it was kept relatively clean and respectful in the first round. I mean, I know we did eventually get an incident between a couple of the drivers. I think it was during the Barcelona round. Into the final chicane near the end of the race, where we had a safety car that just shook the whole thing up and really made that race quite interesting. Hopefully no safety cars today, though. That is always the target. But looking at the qualifying results as it stands at the moment, I mean, I'm not seeing anyone improving massively just yet, or at least not enough to pull that pole position spot off Chris Byram. I mean, Carlos Ghosn did set a purple middle sector, but it doesn't look like he's going to be quite fast enough to improve on this lap. And Chris Byram, I imagine, is just going to be trying his best to set another lap that can put...
Just as I say that,
though.
Just
Yeah.
as you
I mean, we haven't seen anyone dip into the 29s yet, and that's where I'm thinking we might need to see people heading if they want to get pole position. I mean, 1 minute 30.030 is probably as close to the 1 minute 29s as you're going to get without, you know, actually hitting them. So I know Carlos is probably going to be very happy with that lap, especially putting him on P1. I mean, he can then try to run away and not be starting second or third on the grid, which may mean that he has a little bit of an incident or gets caught up in something. You know, as we saw in Suzuka, I think it was through turn 1, coming onto the second part of the right-hander, Carlos just got a snap. We weren't really sure why, and speaking to him afterwards, like, he just said he lost the car and had a little bit of an incident there, but something that hopefully he can avoid. I mean, I think turn 1 and turn 2 around Imola a little bit easier, I would say, on the cars than turn 1 and 2 at Suzuka. So hopefully there's not as many first lap incidents. But let's jump on board with Chris Byram as he is starting his lap and seeing whether or not he can potentially improve. Cesar Cabral has also improved into that 1 minute 30.284, so 2/10 off, and just as I say that, yeah, into the wall goes Chris Byram, and unfortunately with qualifying over, that will be it. So the only one who can really attack Carlos Ghosn now is we'd be looking for Lewis Archer. And I'm not sure if he's improving anywhere just yet, but potentially if Lewis can really start to attack this lap, he may find himself up onto pole position here. But at the moment, it does look like he is down through the first sector, and with a little bit of an off there with another car in front of him, he's probably going to be down in the second as well. So I believe he's the only car now actually out on track, and he may not get a chance to finish this lap. But let's see as he comes through turn 8 and 9 there.
He's still pushing it. You can see getting close to racing limits. He's still giving it his best shot.
Yeah,
coming
absolutely.
through the chicane here, coming towards the later part of the lap. Just got about 3 corners left to go. See if he can improve. He's gonna have a hell of a last 3 corners, but he's gonna give it all he's got.
I will say, though, the look of that GTR car with that chrome look does look quite pretty, doesn't it?
Oh, it's magnificent. My computer doesn't like displaying it, but it's a very nice livery. He always brings it. This one a little flashier than normal. He's usually got a lot of color. This one, a lot of chrome. Well, he couldn't do it. Looks like he'll be starting P3.
Yeah, and that will bring out the grid. Only 14 drivers here. I was expecting to see Ivan Bovkamp out, but I think he potentially had a qualifying ban as Lewis decides that he's going to lock up the brakes a little bit and just test the safety of the track as he pulls behind the barrier there. Decided it's good enough for him, you know, he wants to take the car home. You know, he feels like it's a race winner already, you know?
Oh, absolutely. He's just reserving a spot to get out of the track before the traffic, I guess. But I think you're right about Ivan serving the penalty, so he'll be starting last, I believe. I don't know how much practice time he's put in. He's got a 32.1. He could be saving some speed. He's always had some speed, so we'll see where he can end it.
Absolutely, but let's take a look here then at the qualifying results. Carlos Ghosn putting it on pole position with a 1:30.030. Chris Byram in second with a 0.042 gap to Carlos Ghosn, so very, very close there. not even a tenth off between the two drivers. So Chris Byram's going to be wishing that he just had maybe one extra horsepower at the end of that lap to put him a little bit closer. Lewis Archer there wrapping up the top 3, with Cesar Cabral starting behind Chris Byram, which should make for quite an interesting turn 1. Alex Gutnecht in P5 with Daniel Thomas in P6. Alexander Carver-Robbins P7, who is also Carlos Catal's teammate. So I wonder if Carlos has potentially given Alexander a lot more advice and potentially setup work as well. Obviously, with them being teammates, they can absolutely share the same setup. So maybe he found a little bit of time there. Jake Potts then in P8, who is Alex Gutnecht's teammate, with Lewis Colon there in P9, Colton Hall in P10, Ronald Mathot there in P11, Sean Gerd in P12. So both Gasparilla cars starting alongside each other, with Corey Schatzer, Zach Pimenta, and then Ivan Bovkamp rounding out the back of the grid. But I mean, definitely close qualifying results. I mean, top 7 within a second, but your top 4 within 3/10. I mean, that shows how close this race is going to be, I think, for the top guys. Yeah,
and the grids are set, so as the pairings are very close. You got 1 and 2 basically the same time. 3 and 4 are both in the 30.2s, and then 5, 6, 30.7. So hopefully this is a race we see them keep it that close all throughout. Tight battles.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we will quickly take a look at just while we are getting ourselves ready for the race here is we will take a look at the championship standings as it is at the moment. So at the moment, Cesar Cabral is your championship leader with 63 points, Carlos Catal in second with 51 points, and then Chris Byram with 45 there in third. So with Chris Byram starting in second and Carlos Catal starting in first, I mean, Catal's going to look to try and maybe run away, decrease that deficit that he has to Cesar, and Chris Byram again probably looking to do the same sort of thing. And then as your team standings as it is at the moment, Cuda Works team, which would be Chris Byram and Ivan Bovkamp there in P1, with U-Race Brazil, which is just Cesar by himself in P2, and then the Ariga Motorsports team with Carlos Catal and Alexander Carver-Robbins together there in P3. The rest of the grid, as I say, all getting involved. I mean, Lewis Archer, you can never count him out. And yes, he is in P4 at the moment with 34 points, but considering the fact that he's already missed a round, I mean, you know, who knows where the limit is for that driver. I mean, he's going to try and look to win. I mean, that's everyone's goal, right? As a driver, you know, you enter the race to try and win, but he's going to look to try and probably go further than that and maybe win back-to-back championships.
Yeah, and that just makes you push harder earlier. You know, Caesar, he can kind of take it easy and pick when he pushes and pick when he defends, but with Lewis being already down a race in points, he's got to race a little harder, which might put him in some situations he doesn't necessarily want or need to be in, but I think he looks forward to the challenge. Yeah. And also with Ivan starting at the back here today, maybe a mix up there in the team standings if he isn't able to get good points today. We have another good showing from Cabral. You know, that may bump him up there, right there at the lead of the team standings as well.
Yeah, I mean, if Cabral wins and Chris Byram doesn't finish very well himself, and maybe Bovkamp doesn't get a good result, you know, maybe finishes out of the points even, I mean, we could look at maybe a shake-up for the team standings, and again, the Ariga guys are not that far behind. I mean, yeah, you're looking at 63 points to 51, which, incidentally enough, is also the gap between Cesar Cabral and Carlos Catal themselves, so, I mean, it's not unlikely that the Ariga guys could not finish in the top in the team standings near the end of the race, but it's one of those things. I think that, especially with Caesar, I think as the championship goes on and a lot of these guys start to really push, we're gonna see probably the solo teams start to drop down a little bit. But enough of that. I believe it is indeed race time, as everyone is going to be lining up on the grid and we will take a look here at Chris Byram. Long way to turn 1, I have to admit, but 41 laps here at Interlagos. Not Interlagos, Imola. Interlagos was last week.
It's a real long way to turn 1 at
yeah. Gotta drive all the way, but here we go. We're starting to get the lights coming on. 5 red lights, you hear the cars all revving up, and it is green here for the Imola Grand Prix, and there looks to be like a couple of drivers already having a couple of bad starts, but it looks like Carlos Quintao and Chris Byram are going to go side by side into turn 1. Chris Byram trying to take the inside line. Is he going to be able to keep holding it off of Carlos Quintao? And it does like he manages to get ahead there, which does put him into the lead of the race, but looking further back, I mean, Carlos is going to try and maybe look down the inside of Chris Byram. Nothing there just yet, but it looked like Lewis Archer was also on the back end trying to maybe make a move, and I believe Alex Gutnecht also with an amazing start there, jumping up a couple of positions, and Alexander Carver-Robbins also gaining a couple of positions. But it looks like one of the cars that didn't get off the line was Cesar Cabral himself, so that's going to be something that we may have to look back on as the race goes on. But he didn't really seem to get off the line much and ended up costing him quite a few positions, down now 8 positions into P12, so he's going to look to try and maybe make some moves here later on into the race as we go on board with Chris Byram under attack now by Carlos Quintao into the chicane, which is not really an overtaking opportunity. So Carlos Quintao maybe messing himself up, and is going to allow Lewis Archer up the inside here going into the next couple of corners, and he does get the move done. But is Carlos going to be able to get the move done under braking? He dives very deep, very late, and it looks like he's going to take the inside line. Lewis trying his best to defend round the outside, and with the run out of the corner, it looks like he does manage to do so. And Alexander Carver-Robbins there in the background does hit the wall as well, so that's going to be an interesting contact to look back on, and I believe he may have had contact with Daniel Thomas, as it looks like Carlos and Lewis Archer going absolutely toe to toe here, and allowing Chris Byram actually to get away quite a bit.
Yeah, it looks like this battle's heating up, but maybe there was not a lot of damage done to Robin's car. He can recover. I don't know if he made contact with anybody else. We'll have to look at the replay, but we're still green. We made it through the first lap without major incident, no safety cars.
Yeah, and that's going to be a little bit of a stark contrast to what we've had the last couple of weeks. So nice to see everyone getting through lap 1 relatively unscathed. And Lewis Archer's now going to be trying to chase down Carlos Quintao, who's also going to be trying to chase down Chris Byram. But it looks like closest battles on track, actually. Alex Gutnecht is up on the back of Lewis. So maybe if Lewis isn't careful, he's actually going to have to be checking his mirrors, which again may allow Carlos to not focus so much on the battling going on behind him, and instead actually enable him to just push that little bit harder, try to push to catch Chris Byram. And if he can, obviously that's going to be some amazing results. And Ivan Bothkamp, I'll tell you what, he has gained 8 positions off the start. I mean, it's lap 2, and he's already up to P7 after starting in 15th. So look for him to maybe make a couple more moves later on in this race. But let's keep on board with Lewis Archer and see whether or not he can maybe make a move on Carlos Quintao, as we see Chris Byram absolutely setting blistering pace right now. Almost a second quicker than the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's certainly pulling away and enjoying the battle behind him, allowing him to pull away even further. There's no time to rest. He had no time to really pull away from Lewis here. Carlos did not, to try to close that gap, and now we see Lewis trying to make a move on the inside.
Turn around to the outside. I mean, he manages to get the move done, which, I mean, now Carlos is having to defend himself from Alex Gutnecht up the inside of the hairpin as well, and depending on Carlos's acceleration coming out of the corner, I mean, he may just start dropping even more positions, you know? You lose one, you may lose a couple more, and that's indeed what we see, as Carlos Quintao has now lost himself another position to Alex Gutnecht. So it's looking like the old Murray Walker saying that this driver looks like he's racing backwards here, as he seems to have dropped a couple of positions, and Daniel Thomas and Lewis Colon are also going to try to start making up a couple more places, as Ivan Bovekamp looking for a bit of an opportunistic move, but thinks better of it, and instead is just going to sit behind at the moment, I think, and just bide his time, wait for the guys in front to maybe make a mistake. I mean, if the pace light is going to continue like this, then I feel as if he can just sort of sit, wait for the drivers to make mistakes, and then just go up the inside like he has done with a couple of the other cars so far.
Yeah, he's a very aggressive driver, so you can see these guys battling, so he definitely wants to push, keep on their tail, and take advantage of any opportunity they present him. So we could see him up here battling Carlos and Daniel and Alex for too long.
But here we go, looking to try and make it 3 wide into turn 1, and I think Carlos had to back out as he saw the attempt there from Daniel Thomas going up the inside and making a very opportunistic move, which is now going to allow, up on the back of that, Lewis Colon and maybe even Ivan Bovekamp to try and make positions. I mean, this is all kicking off, and Carlos Quetal seems to be the one coming off the worst for it, as Ivan does go up the inside here into the hairpin, but we'll see on traction whether or not he can make any moves stick, as it looks like he doesn't seem to be able to get the run, which is going to mean that maybe he can now try and push around the outside here, but taking that, the outside line not paying off, as that allows Lewis Colon to also get up the inside, and you've got to be careful going side by side here, as there was almost contact there between the Turning Point Racing cars and the Cuda Works car there of Ivan Bovekamp and Lewis Colon. And I'll tell you what, the this battle here between Carlos Quetal and these other two drivers is looking like it's going to heat up all race, and Ivan is absolutely on a mission.
He is all over Lewis in front of him, trying to get that position, because the way they're racing, you don't know if the guy is gonna be there next lap or not. They're sending it for sure early here today.
Yeah, and I will tell you what, I mean, if the battling is going to be like this all the way through the race, this is going to be absolutely insane. I mean, you know, we talk about the DRS as well with these cars, works slightly different to that of F1, of you don't even need to be within a second of the car in front, as far as I'm aware. You just have 8 uses throughout the course of the race, and I mean, 8 uses and 41 laps leaves you with not many laps, really, to use it. And, you know, every time you use DRS, you will always be gaining on the car in front, unless they're doing the same thing. But with Slipstream as well, it just makes it even easier sometimes to make that move. And we're going to probably be seeing a lot of drivers using it on the start-finish straight as well, into turn number 1, as we've already seen quite a few moves, actually, into turn 1. So, you know, from the likes of Lewis, Daniel Thomas, Alex, all trying to make moves on other drivers. And again, Colon's going to have to be careful here, because again, Lewis Colon's looking to be a bit stronger on this section of the lap, so I don't know whether or not Carlos is maybe not running as much downforce as these other guys, and that's why maybe he's struggling a bit through the middle sector here at Imola. But for some reason it looks as though he's just not able to really make anything of it, as Lewis almost tries to make it look like he's going to go for the move, but ends up not really getting anywhere with it, which is an interesting decision. I can't imagine that making a move through that chicane is going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, he looks to be just hanging on, waiting for a better opportunity. No sense, here we are, lap 5. You don't want to put yourself in an opportunity where you may be sitting in the garage on lap 6. You got the long straightaway, like you said here. Maybe use some DRS. Get a run on the guy into turn 1, which looks like he might be gaining here, might have a shot to make the move into turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely, but it doesn't look like he's going to do it with DRS assistance, so it looks like it's just going to be a straight-up drag race to the line. And at the moment, Carlos looks like he didn't have as much of a gap as he would have liked, so Lewis trying to throw everything at him, but again, not able to really make any moves just yet. So maybe next lap is where we'll see Lewis go for the move with DRS. But saying that, again, the hairpin, Lewis tries to strike up the inside, and that's going to throw Carlos off a little bit. And again, that hairpin seems to be where, for some reason, Carlos just can't seem to get the car stopped. At least not as well as some of these other drivers, as Lewis goes round the inside and maybe blocks him off a little bit, and that's going to allow Ivan to try and maybe make the move around the outside here. And this is a very, very, very dangerous place to try and go side by side, as there was contact between the two drivers, and I think Ivan did go wide a bit there, but it doesn't look like anything really came of that majorly anyway. So potentially there may be some words going on there between the two drivers at the end of the race, but looks so far like there wasn't any massive damage caused. So we'll just see about that as now Ivan's going to have to work just a little bit harder to maybe try and catch up to the back of these guys.
Yeah, he got up there to P7 pretty quick, but as these guys are getting faster and faster towards the front, it's proven a little harder than it had in the beginning. And we see Carlos pitting here. Maybe he suspects he has some damage. Maybe he's got some damage we didn't see at the start of the race that has slowed him down off of his qualifying pace.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, you know, we did see a couple of drivers going off, and Cesar Cabral obviously not getting off the start, but I can't imagine any of that really would have affected Carlos Catal. So unless that contact with Ivan caused the issue there for Catal, I mean, again, Catal maybe trying to play the long game here, taking his pit early. Remember, it is a mandatory pit stop for this race, so he may want to take his pit early, maybe just get out of the way of everyone else, and you know, use the fast repair, get his car fully ready to take on the rest of this race. And you know, he's probably not going to need to stop now until, you know, the end of the race. So maybe if he plays the long game and there's a safety car or some other collisions, then maybe this is the strategy for him.
Yeah, if that's his strategy, it's probably a good move with how racy these guys have been. They're spread out, but I don't know if we can get away without our safety car the entire race as hard as they were racing. And Lewis here, maybe gaining on Daniel Thomas, might see a good race there. And if they have an accident, it's a safety car. He's caught back up. He gets track position during the pit. But I just wonder if he had damage we didn't see. Maybe he hit a curb a little harder than he wanted to or something, because he certainly lost a lot of positions. I don't know if it was racing with Lewis, or maybe just all those positions were from Lewis putting him in an unfavorable position to exit the corner, and then he was on the defense, and then on the defense again with somebody else.
But here we go. Lewis is going to try to maybe make the move around the outside. It looked as though he almost had the draft on him, but unfortunately couldn't really make anything there in turn one. And he's now going to try and maybe just reset, try and maybe take him on the back straight here before one of the chicanes. I mean, the chicanes are always a good opportunity to maybe make a move, and as we've seen, the hairpin is also another one. If you can get a good run out of the chicane and into the hairpin, then you know, you set yourself up really well coming onto this back straight before turn number 9 and then into 10, 11 and 12. I mean, as we've seen already between Ivan and Carlos, turn 10, 11 and 12, you can't really make any massive moves, so you kind of just have to, I think, in the middle of this track, you kind of just have to sit behind the guy and just wait for a mistake. Or if the mistake doesn't come, then you kind of need to just like maybe show your nose a bit to say, hey, I am here, so you know, if you make a mistake, I'm going to try to definitely make it up the inside. And you know, sometimes that's all it takes. You know, the mirrors in these cars not necessarily that big, but thanks to the lovely world of sim racing, we also do have virtual mirrors that can help you see a little bit more of what's going on, and some people may take advantage of that, obviously, by darting around in the mirror, make you look up and maybe make you miss a braking zone or two. We have seen that play out before in a couple of races. So, and here we go with Lewis Colon coming down the start-finish straight. He does have a slipstream, and it does look like he's trying to maybe make the move around the outside, but once again, Daniel Thomas doing an amazing job at defending that.
Yeah, it may have been better to kind of just hold off and try and get the better exit there, but he took it to the outside, lost a little bit of time, but I think he'll make it up. I think he's got a little pace on Daniel, especially in the straightaway when he's in the draft. Maybe he can get the inside line next time into turn 1. Maybe make him uncomfortable and make Daniel go a little wide, get that position. But so far, I don't think these guys are going to separate themselves from each other. It's probably the biggest race we have on the track. These guys look to be going at it the entire way, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there has been a couple of other drivers who are quite close on track. I mean, I believe we'd be seeing, if we go down further down to the grid to P10, Ronald Mathot and his teammate Sean Gerd quite close, but it's a team battle, right? Like, you're probably thinking if these two drivers are together, then they're probably talking, hey, let's just try and use each other as much as we can to push ourselves into, you know, trying to catch the guys in front, because we may not have the raw pace, but if we work together, maybe just do a slipstream train, we can actually maybe make a couple moves that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. And that's also one thing with obviously this being a team's championship, is you know, when you're talking with your teammate, do you say, hey, let's just race and what happens happens, or do you actually play the team game and try to maybe just draft each other and see what happens?
Yeah, right now they're both sitting in points. I think you have to be happy with those points. You certainly don't want to put your position in a position to where you finish outside of the points, the both of you. So I think they don't really have the, like you said, the raw speed, the pace they need to probably be contended for the podium. So maybe just a solid point stay and take advantage of maybe some incidents we'll see later in the race, move up to maybe P6 or P7.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we were talking about that, the move was made by Lewis Colon finally to get around the outside of Daniel Thomas. So we can try and maybe take a look at that move as we see here coming down the start-finish straight. And it looks like it was just a pretty standard move, honestly. Just out-dragged him, maybe with a bit of DRS assistance as well into turn 1, taking the inside line, and then you just take your line through. The guy behind can't really do anything, and that move's probably as easy as Lewis would have liked it to be after the last couple of attempts.
Yeah, and maybe Daniel knew he was coming. Maybe he had the pace on him, and you decide, hey, I'm gonna let this guy go. Maybe catch his draft and be a little quicker for it. Maybe we can catch a guy in front of us, as you were talking with the teammates, maybe working together. Sometimes the best move is to just follow the guy instead of having him fill your mirror up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, looking at the top speed, so the speed traps here that we do have around the circuit, it does look like Lewis Colon did actually manage to, I think he did have DRS because he was 10 kilometers an hour quicker going down the start-finish straight, which, I mean, you'd imagine that, right? With DRS and the slipstream, you're probably going to be quite a significant amount faster than the car in front of you. And again, if Lewis felt like he was being held up, he's probably going to use DRS a bit more aggressively to try and make that move and really like push himself to catch up. Because I mean, he hasn't been in clean air for very long, and already he's catching up to the back of Alex Gutnecht in P3.
And Alex isn't going to make it easy getting that P3. You want to keep that podium position, but Lewis has found some speed here. He wants to use it. Clearly showed he was all over Daniel back there, willing to use one of his 8 DRS uses. So we'll see if maybe he can set one up. He's in a position where he might be able to make the pass in the same place on Alex to get that podium at the end of this lap, beginning of next lap. Try and get the good exit out of 18. That really sets you up for the long straightaway into turn 1. My opinion, the most important corner on the lap is these two right here. You try to get a good acceleration out of there. If you can beat the guy out of that corner, you just have all the confidence going down the straightaway. You have the draft, you have the speed, DRS if you have it. You just try to set him up the best you can for turn 1. Looks like he's gonna give him a wide berth there. Maybe give him the corner.
Yeah, and again, no DRS usage. So that was just pure slipstream. And again, you know, you look at the top speed trap, and it was 277 kilometers an hour for Colon, and then 267 for Alex Gutnecht. So again, that 10 kilometer an hour spread without DRS, I mean, with DRS, you're probably looking even higher than that. And that's going to equate to some serious, like, slipstream potential and moves that you just can't defend if you're the car in front.
That's probably a smart move by Alex, being in past Daniel and close up his. You're watching your relative. You're watching the mirror the whole time. You can see how much quicker the guy is from you. You can hold him up a corner or two, but it's just holding you both up if you try to defend. And he's got crazy straightaway speed. A little squirrely coming out of the chicane there, which is going to give Alex maybe a chance to look inside to this right-hander.
Yeah, and I believe they are going to go side by side through the chicane, and both drivers just about giving enough room there. And that does mean that actually with those two battling through the chicane, I mean, I said it wasn't a very easy place to make a move, and you look at the time difference between those two drivers and then Daniel Thomas behind them. I mean, Daniel Thomas has a front row seat for that, and it's looking like he's going to try and maybe make the most of it. You know, if he can get a good exit out of here, he can maybe use one of his DRS usage to get maybe a double move here, as Alex is going to try and look towards the inside. And I believe Lewis Colon is trying to use his DRS, and I believe that flap is closed there at the rear, which means he is going to maybe have a bit more speed than he otherwise would. And Daniel Thomas has just made it past, hopefully, the Alex Gutnecht. And again, all these cars battling is going to be maybe iFormula Camp is going to now get involved as well.
This has gone from a 2-car race to might be a 4-car race next lap, because Ivan is right there. Daniel made a great move in a turn 1 on the outside, kind of pushed his luck a little bit, but I think Alex gave him the corner. He's not giving him any corner this time. He's getting him pretty close on the inside. Going to fall in line, get the draft, try to set him up for the next corner. Daniel cuts it off, trying to get a good exit to keep from being gapped by Lewis. Or yeah, Lewis looks like he's pulling away from this 3-car battle back here now, taking advantage of what Daniel had to catch up with him. The battle with him and Alex. So Lewis will definitely look in his mirror and say, "Keep at it, guys. Keep at it."
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys at the end.
I mean, you know, it's one thing I think as a driver you look at any time you're in clean air and the guys behind you are battling. You're constantly probably saying to yourself, you know, this is great, just keep battling. I can then just lap my own race. You know, I don't need to worry about what's happening behind because all these guys are giving me so much pressure, and now all of a sudden they're just not there anymore, so I can just properly go for it. And here we are. I believe we're going to see Alex Goodnight try to make a move there on the inside of Daniel Thomas, and absolutely no way for Daniel to defend this. And if Daniel's not careful, he may have to defend here from Ivan Bovkamp, and he did come across there a little bit and looked like he was almost going to cut Ivan off, but Ivan a bit smart to that one and just lifting out of that. Not really showing that he's going to make a move just yet, but obviously now being close. You look at a couple of these corners, and the hairpin's a prime example. Is Daniel Thomas going to send it? And doesn't look like it, and neither is Ivan. But the hairpin seems to be a place that we've seen quite a lot of people going for moves, and not always successful, but again, into turn 1, that slipstream, I mean, it's just so powerful that you can't really defend it. And I think as the driver in front, even if you use the DRS to try and defend, which is obviously something unique to these Formula Renault 3.5 cars, that you just can't seem to ever have the speed if the other car behind you is just sitting behind in the slipstream, you know? I mean, in terms of these single-seater cars, I think these must be the ones that are affected by slipstream the highest. I mean, I know in the F1, again, it's a similar sort of thing. If you sit within that sort of half-a-second gap, and then you just seem to be able to blitz past on any sort of long straight, even without using DRS.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be effective this afternoon. The use of DRS and the draft, like you said, is almost insurmountable. You can try to defend with it, but it's almost like you're giving away a DRS use and you're still losing the position. So maybe it's easier to just try to defend, make him mess up, and save it for your attack later once he gets around you. Here we see Ivan thinking about making a move on Daniel. And what a drive by Ivan, starting last. And if he can get around these guys, he could see a podium a couple of corners ahead of him by the time he gets to him as Lewis is pulling away.
And that was a very opportunistic move there by Daniel Thomas up the inside of Alex Goodnecht. And I'll tell you what, that wasn't a move I was expecting to see coming. And then Alex just answers straight back into that hairpin. And now it's just going to be a drag race to the line between all 3 of these cars. And I think Ivan's looking at this and maybe worrying a little bit. If these guys keep battling as hard as they are, then, you know, Ivan may have to back out of a lot of moves that he wouldn't otherwise considered. And we're maybe going to see Ivan here go up the inside. And oh, there seems to be contact there between Daniel Thomas and Ivan Bovkamp. And that is going to be unfortunate for Daniel, as he seems to come off a lot worse from that. Losing a position there to Cesar Cabral as well, who is slowly clawing his way up the field. But I'm sure that incident with Ivan and Daniel is going to be looked at as Lewis Archer is also now coming into the pit lane. So Lewis may be coming in a little bit early as well. Interesting to see. I mean, he had a 5-second gap to Chris Byram. So, and now Lewis Colon also coming into the pit lane as well. So maybe Colon was answering to Archer, and maybe they just want to get themselves out in clean air. But this seems to be quite an early pit stop, actually.
Yeah, maybe this was planned. He was closing the gap, Lewis was, to the leader. I believe he cut it down from about 7 seconds to about 5, so he was definitely in a good pace, a good zone. So maybe he scheduled this, maybe he took a little less fuel at the beginning with incentive stopping here if they didn't get a safety car. But yeah, that incident with Ivan and Daniel, unfortunate. I don't know. I have to look at it and see if maybe a little netcode was involved, or maybe just Ivan drove it a little deep into the corner. I think I did hear through race chat there was maybe an apology thrown out there, so
Yeah,
maybe that was a little bit of aggressive driving on Ivan's part.
and we can definitely try to maybe take a look back at the incident here, hopefully, if I can find it on the screen actually. Here we go, we can take a look at it from Ivan's POV, I think. No, that's not the right move. Neither is that one. I'm sure it's here somewhere. I'll find it. We'll talk about it. But
yeah, we'll definitely review that in the days coming here. But in the meantime, Ivan closing up here on Alex, looking for that podium position. I know some pit stops put him here, but you still like to see that number 3, number 4 on your position after you started dead last, not qualifying. Kind of gives you a little confidence and momentum for the second half as he's looking to make a move here on Alex.
yeah, absolutely. And around the outside of turn number 1, cuts into the inside of turn number 2, and oh, it looks as though Alex made a mistake there as well, going off into the grass and rejoining the track, and you know, no one around, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, it looked as though Ivan came back and just took his line, and Alex wasn't expecting him to cut back so aggressively, and as such caused maybe a little bit of an issue there between the two drivers. But I don't think there was any contact made. I think Alex just got a little bit spooked.
Yeah, I don't know if he expected him to send it that hard or to cut back as quick as he did, but certainly affected his line through the corner, and just minor adjustments there didn't work out the way they could have for him.
But going on board now with the GTR Evolution guys of Lewis Archer and Daniel Thomas. I mean, Lewis just getting a free pass, it looked like, in the hairpin. And I'm sure Daniel Thomas was very much just, hey, you know, I know you're behind me. Do you want me to let you through? And Lewis was like, yes, absolutely. I've got a race to try and win, you know? And just tried to make it as easy on him as possible. And I think I have found a replay here between Ivan, so we can maybe take a look at this contact. And did look a little bit netcodey, but even without the netcode, it looked like maybe he was just sending in a bit too quick on him, honestly. So
Yeah, I think Ivan carried a little bit more speed than he probably wanted to or should have into that corner. A little bit of netcode, but even without the netcode, I think there was going to be an accident there. So Daniel Thomas probably certainly upset with that.
yeah, as it looks like Cesar Cabral now finally comes in to make his pit stop. And again, a lot of these drivers seem to be going for this really early pit stop. I think maybe with what we've seen so far with lots of safety cars near the start of the race, I think a lot of drivers have been like, okay, well, potentially we might get a safety car at some point, so if we just underfuel the car and, you know, pit under safety car or pit a lap before and see what happens. But it looks as though actually it's not really benefited the drivers too much. I mean, Lewis Archer, I guess, is, you know, top of the guys who have stopped, and he's 37 seconds behind Chris Byram, which, if Chris Byram knows that and he reacts, I mean, he just did set the fastest race lap last lap, so if he reacts potentially to Lewis Archer's pit stop, then we may end up seeing Chris Byram taking the net lead of this race by just, you know, being out there and just being in clean air and having everyone else battle behind him.
Yeah, maybe Lewis wasn't making the gains he needed on Chris, and he thought, you know, P2 worst scenario, so I might as well pit and see if I can change something up, and maybe that'll be the difference maker. It might not be working out here, but you never know. Like you said, safety car, these guys are getting racy. Here's Alexander Carver Robbins racing in here tight, sending into the chicane.
It looks like that move was made just before the apex, so a nice move there from Carver Robbins up the inside of Ronald Mathot, but that's going to allow Lewis Colon to maybe try and make a move on the back of that. Again, quite opportunistic moves to send it into that chicane. I mean, it's not really a place that you can go side by side, and we do see a lot of time loss anytime you do. And Lewis Colon, having pitted, obviously going to try to make any sort of a place that he can as quickly as he can, especially on the back of this Gasparilla Motorsport car of Ronald Mathot, who, you know, as we mentioned before, may not have the out-and-out pace, but, you know, if they can just keep clean as they are, then they may end up seeing themselves in, you know, P8, P9, grabbing a couple points, and if that's all they're looking for, you know, it's a great result for them, you know, grabbing points on a track that they may not be comfortable with, or, you know, the car's not comfortable with, or they just didn't have the setup for. I mean, yeah, there's lots of reasons why you may see a team that has done well in other races, maybe not do so well, and oh no, Alexander Carver-Robbins there, getting on the throttle a little bit too early and just causing himself a little bit of a spin, and he's going to try and get back on track safely, hopefully avoiding everyone else behind him, and it does look like he has done so.
I don't know if he's pit or not. That's hopefully he hasn't. Took some life out of those tires otherwise. But you hate to see this with Lewis. You don't want to be stuck behind a guy who might not have pit yet, or somebody you're ahead of before you pit. You're just hoping to come out in clean air, make some clean laps, warm your tires up, and make a little bit of gain on the guy that you pit behind. But here Ronald's giving him all he can handle.
Yeah,
Lewis
I mean,
not really gonna be getting around him.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you pit hoping to come out in some clean air so you can just run your laps, and if that's the case, I mean, you end up in a situation where if you can make those moves, then you stand a good chance of, you know, having higher pace as the race goes on, because you're not taking life out of the tires, battling with anyone. Especially if the guy is potentially slower than you, you may actually end up be taking more life out of the tires because you're having to dart around a little bit more, just not expecting them to be slower in parts of the track where you are, you know, that little bit quicker. So, you know, Lewis is probably looking at it and looking at the slipstream and being like, I just want to make sure I can get ahead of him as soon as possible, as we finally do see Chris Byram does come into the pit lane here. So hopefully he can come out potentially ahead of a couple of these other drivers, as it seems like our timing graphic here has gone through a little bit of a loop, but there it is, it's all sorted now. As Alexander Carver-Robbins there in the pit lane seems to have a little bit of an issue once again with iRacing. I mean, you know, the timings are never super reliable.
Yeah, a lot of work between the UIs we use in iRacing, and sometimes it gets a little hairy. But it straightens out after a lap or two. We'll be able to see where they shake down. Looks like we still have Lewis and his teammate together.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Lewis had any incidents by himself, like maybe just a spin or something, but it looked as though, yeah, Lewis did actually have an off track, so that's why he was behind his teammate again. But that does mean that Chris Byram now has actually quite a significant gap to Lewis Archer in P4. I mean, you're now looking at it and probably thinking, if you're Lewis Archer, you're thinking, well, I've just had this mistake, but I need to be giving it all I can to try and catch up to the back of Chris Byram, knowing that the two cars in front of them, Alex Gutknecht and Ivan Bovkamp, haven't pit yet. So, you know, you could say Byram and Archer are currently first and second in the race, you know, with Thomas being in P3, but again, I don't think Thomas has pit yet, so maybe we're looking at Catal with that pit strategy of coming in super early as lap 7, and, you know, he's now in P6 overall, so potentially up into P3, and you know what I was saying earlier about how Catal seems to be able to finish on the podium regardless on where he is in the race? I believe at one point he was down like 12th or 13th, and he's back up to P6, potentially going to be in P3 near the end of this race.
Yeah. Sometimes it's best to make those mistakes early. Keep your head down and just get over it. Sometimes that first little mistake kind of sets you up. You're like, okay, butterflies are gone. I made a little error. Now let's just keep our head down, keep driving, keep pushing. Everyone else will make mistakes. We'll get back up there. And he seems to have really made a lot of progress. Gonna be back on the podium, maybe. Another bridesmaid situation. Might not be the bride today. P2 or P3, but hey, they're solid points for the season.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Carlos is just going to be looking for consistency more than anything else, I think. Especially with Cesar Cabral at the moment in P9. You know, you look at Cesar and you're like, well, he's won the last 2 races, so where's his pace this race, right? As he does make his move on Ronald Mathot there for P8, so, you know, you look at his pace and you're like, it's definitely quick enough to be with these big guys. You know, he's doing 31s at the moment, which just seems to be what all these quick guys are doing. You know, Chris Byram's done 31s, like mid 31s, the same with Lewis Archer. Ivan Bergkamp, mid to high 31s. Lewis Colon again, same thing. So with all of these drivers being so close in time, I feel like if you lose track position around here, it's going to be so much harder for you to try and then make up that time, because everyone is so consistent in terms of pace, so like evenly matched. And we saw it in qualifying, right? So, you know, the top 4 were 0.3 apart, and it seems like that's continued on into the race, but also introducing the likes of Ivan Bergkamp, who didn't qualify.
Yeah, see, the gear certainly that.
Not as it looks
you're
like.
right, he's had the pace, but he just hasn't got the track position yet.
Sorry, I may have to repeat yourself there, man. It looks like looks like Discord had a little bit of an issue, just with a little bit of lag there. So, what was it that you were saying?
Issues all around, coming in loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying, Caesar's had the pace, probably kicking himself for whatever mistake it was he made on the grid. Just didn't get going when the rest of the guys did, cost himself probably 6 positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was an interesting thing. It just looked like he didn't seem to get off the line as well as everyone else. So, for some reason, I mean, maybe he had an issue where he just didn't, seem to be able to, you know, he may have left the car in neutral, as we saw from Igor Filipic on the F1. You know, it's just little things like this that, like, you're so ingrained and used to, like, you know, making sure your car's in gear on the start and making sure you're revved up and everything's all good, and that you may actually end up forgetting because you just run on autopilot, right? So we do see Alex Gutknecht is also coming into the pit lane, which will promote Byram up into the lead of this race, and then Archer in P3 will move up to P2, and then I believe Daniel Thomas will also move up to P3 as well. And I believe Gutknecht will maybe come out behind Ivan Bergkamp, actually. But Thomas also pulls into the pit lane, which will promote Carlos Cattell once again to a podium position.
We still have this battle here between Caesar and Lewis. Caesar closing the gap. He'll probably get him on the straightaway here. He'll have the draft. I don't know if he'll use the DRS for this, but the draft alone should be enough. As he swings wide to hopefully tell him, hey, I want the inside on turn 1. I've got the speed and not a lot you can really do about it, so you let him go.
It does look like Caesar there was using DRS, actually. I believe I did see that rear wing move just as he hits under braking. Very hard to notice, actually, in these cars when DRS is active or closed, because of the way that DRS works on these cars. Instead of it being like that big flap opening that you see, big exaggerated flap opening that you see in F1, the rear wing actually closes on these cars and actually stalls the airflow that way, which is something that makes it very hard as a, you know, as a commentator and a broadcaster and as a fan to know when these guys are actually using DRS. So hopefully at some point we can maybe try and figure out a way to display a graphic or something for everyone to know when the driver ahead is actually using it. And who's that that's gone off? I believe that was Alex Gutknecht, actually. Let's take a look and see what happened here. So, coming out of the corner, it looks like, oh, he was just on the, looked like he was just on the curb there, and for some reason the car just unsettled itself and sent him massively into the wall, and it looks like he also has steering damage. So, if he can get back to the pits, he may have a fast repair left and can repair his car and get himself back out, but if not...
Just out of the crash, right? He maybe a lap or two before that, maybe some cold tires were involved in that incident.
I mean, potentially, as we do see him, he does indeed go into the pit lane with one on the foot as well. So, yeah, you know, it's not something you want to do, obviously. First lap out of the pits and then to send it into the wall like that is not ideal. But, yeah, I mean, this track shows that it's difficult. It's a driver's circuit, right, as I said before. So, you know, there's so many places where you are relying on the car, you're relying on the downforce of the car to really, like, get you out of the corners in a way that can help you. And, you know, you take a look at the downforce of these cars, and yes, you may be running more downforce than, like, say, Spa, for example, where Spa has a lot of like really long straights, and yes, the corners are technical and require high downforce, but I think the straights outweigh the loss of time through the middle sector, right? Whereas around Imola, you have such a high mix of all of it that you're almost trying to run as little downforce as possible on these cars, and as such, maybe a couple drivers running a lot less than they would like to, but it's proving to be quick and what works for them, so they just have to be a bit more careful on cold tires with the car not, you know, gluing itself to the road as much.
Yeah, and after you do 20, 25 laps, you get in that rhythm, you come out of the pits, and you just take over where you were, and sometimes you forget those tires don't have as much grip as they did when you went in, or you just get in the throttle a little too early for where they're at, and you lose the rear end. And these cars, once they start going, they're hard to save. They start wanting to go around, they're going to go around. So you just hope you don't do it where he did it. Take off the nose of the car. You'd rather spin in one of these sand traps, but it's unfortunate for Alex. He had a really good race going. He spent some time in the pits. Maybe he'll still... Looks like he'll still probably podium. I think he took a fast repair. He'll still get some points. Or not podium, he'll still get some points.
I believe he may actually be out of the race. He has been in the pit lane now for almost 2 minutes, so potentially not coming back out anymore. And that's gonna be a bit devastating for him. I mean, as you said, he was having an amazing race, you know, battling with the top guys and showing that he, you know, he can battle up there and he can really make moves. But that now leaves us with, I believe, 3 cars retiring from the race, with Corey Schartzer not seeming to be making any laps. I think they made about like 9 laps and retired after a mistake, and then Jake Potts as well on lap 20, and then Alex Gutnecht on lap 24. So unfortunately to those guys, I mean, you know, it is a shame, but as you said, those cold tires, I mean, they're not easy to control, and with a car like this, you know, you don't have like the GT3 aids of ABS and TC helping you out. You just have to rely on your own right foot, and sometimes that right foot can maybe get a little bit of lead in it and, you know, cause yourself to maybe have a bit of an incident coming out of the corner.
Yeah, my timing now reflecting that Alex is unfortunately retired. But previous lap, we have Cesar Cabral setting the fastest lap of the race, it looks like, 1:31.4. So he's go mode. He's trying to close the gap in front of him to Ivan, which is, I think, about 3.5 seconds now. My timing is correct.
Yeah, we're looking at about 3.5 seconds between the gap between them. And I mean, last lap he was, you know, almost a second quicker. So provided he can keep that sort of pace up, I mean, we may end up seeing another race here on our hands before the end. And again, we have, you know, quite a few laps left of this race. I mean, this race has, you know, flown by for the most part, but we still have quite a bit left. You know, it's only lap 27 of a 41 lap race, and you have to be aware that, you know, basically everyone now has pit, right? So everyone is pit, everyone's just going to be gunning to make it to the end, and as such, if you're off in terms of pace to the guy in front, it is, you know, as you said, go time. You know, you need to put the hammer down and you need to get your head down and really go for it. Try and find time any way you can, as Archer did just do another 31 there. So 31 seemed to be the theme of the day if you want to be quick around this circuit, especially in the race. And I believe that is a backmarker of Sean Gurd just getting out of the way there of Cesar Cabral. So it's a nice place for Cesar to catch it, certainly, and does mean that I think Ivan had maybe an unfortunate catch with Sean. That's why he was potentially so far off in terms of pace. I mean, it was almost 1.8 seconds off. So
it's easy to get frustrated in those situations where you have the guy, you see it on the monitor, he's catching you, you're looking at your timing, and you're like a 10th here, a 10th there, and then the guy in front of you, you're just like, get out of the way, get out of the way. But you know, it's his race too, and you know, he's got to safely get through the track and let you find a position where he can let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It just reminds me of the Sebastian Vettel Blue Flag song. It's probably what Ivan was doing as he was trying to pass Sean Gurd, just constantly in his head, just blue flag, blue flag.
That's what I like to think he was.
Gotta make it PG friendly.
Absolutely, but it looks like maybe if Archer can run some laps that Cabral is running, he might start closing the gap a little bit on Byram. I'm looking at side. Byram at 30 on the last lap or two, and Lewis at 30 wins. I don't know if he's got enough time to close that substantial gap.
I mean, if he's doing 31s like you say, and yeah, it certainly looks like that is the case. I mean, 8 tenths here or there every lap. You know, you're going to look at that 8-second gap, and within 8 laps, you're going to be within closing distance, within DRS range, maybe. So, you know, 8 laps, we've got more than that left. Let's see a race here, boys. Let's see if Archer can, you know, really push himself to catch up to the back of Byram, and Byram may have to put the hammer down himself as well. I mean, he's probably going to be aware of the gap to Archer, right? You know, because within iRacing, you have your, you know, you have your relatives box. So depending on what he has set up, he may have that open just so he can keep track of, you know, who's around, especially with all these blue flag guys, as well as the pace seems to just be on another level for the top guys this evening as well. So, you know, Chris is probably looking at that and noting that Archer is actually closing every lap. And looks like Archer again is going to be taking another chunk out of Byram here as the gap has decreased from 8 seconds down to 7, almost in 1 lap. So maybe a mistake from Byram that's going to cause Lewis to catch up maybe a little bit quicker than he would have liked.
Hopefully continues and we can see a good ending to the race. I know Lewis has got to be kicking himself for that. Whatever incident we must have missed, that off track he had that set him back a couple of seconds. You know, he could be in attacking distance right now, of course. Byram.
Well, just as we say that, I mean, Archer, fastest lap of the race, 1:31.45, and I mean, Chris Byram, 1:32.41. I mean, we were talking about that 1 second gap, and here we go. I mean, we may have to monitor it in 7 laps down the line, come back to this and see whether or not the gap has closed, and we only have 11 laps left, so it's looking like it's going to be a 4-lap shootout if the gap keeps closing in the way that it does. And all the time, I think Lewis Archer is closing, and all the time he's really just pushing the lap times. I think more and more Chris Byram is going to be looking at that and having to try and push himself, and maybe potentially push himself into a mistake too. As we've now got Cesar Cabral and Ivan Bovkamp as well here. And Cesar having caught Ivan actually relatively quickly here over the past couple of laps, as we've been more focused on the possible battle between Archer and Byram. And it looks like, did Ivan have a little bit of a mistake there coming out of the corner? Because that's going to allow Cesar to try and maybe go up the inside and right around the outside. And it looks like he did manage to not necessarily make that move, but Ivan lost out there under braking. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be a slowdown penalty for Ivan. So we may end up seeing him having to go a little bit slower into a couple of these corners than he would like, which is going to allow, again, Cesar Cabral to maybe try and make a move. And if Cesar can get on the back of him down this back straight, you know, down the start-finish straight even, I mean, we know how good the draft is. We've seen it so many times now as Cesar looks towards the outside, looks towards the inside, looks towards the outside again, which is going to be the outside of turn 1, but the inside of turn 2. He's going to look to try and maybe send it, but just thinking better of it. Ivan doing a very good job defending, but that's going to allow Lewis Colon to get involved as well. And if Lewis Colon can get involved, we're going to see this 3-way battle once again between these guys. I mean, Cesar Cabral now involved instead of the likes of Daniel Thomas, you know, so, or Alex Gutnecht even. So, again, Ivan Bovkamp and Lewis seems inseparable.
They've been at it all race. Daniel Thomas was right there with him, so imagine without that incident, it'd be a little pack right here, about 4 cars racing. These guys have been around each other all day. They can't get away from each other, which is exciting for us. And then I've always liked racing with people closely passing each other throughout the race. Makes for a fun race. Looks like Ivan's turned it back on here. He held him off for another lap. Oh, and we have a spinner here. Caesar loses it coming out of the corner.
Yeah, that is unfortunate from Caesar, and it looks like there is going to be another car here coming around. I think that may actually end up being Alexander Carver-Robbins, who has got himself back out on track, so that's nice to see. After, I think he had a little bit of an issue, or had a pit stop somewhere So I
I
believe
think we
he's
saw
now.
him spin into the wall about 15 laps or so. Not a lot of damage, but he
I
definitely had an
know.
off-track slight collision.
Yeah, I know. Alex Gutnecht was one of the drivers that did have an incident that put him out of the race. So Alex seems to have gotten a couple of laps back now on the leaders, actually, or at least on Cesar Cabral, which is something that I think as a, I think backmarker is a little bit of a harsh word, but anybody that is further down the grid, you're always looking to just reduce the deficit as much as you can, right? I know that's pushed me in some races and been like, hey, I don't have the pace to win this, but my goal is to maybe just not finish, it's just maybe to not finish a lap down or not finish 2 laps down, and hey, if that's your target, and if you can achieve that, then that's a goal met, and it's just always something to be proud of, and something that you got to take away as a driver, that not all of the time you'll be fighting for a championship position, so maybe try your best to set yourself some other goals that you can maybe achieve and push yourself to that next level. And speaking of pushing yourself to that next level, I think Chris Byram is finally starting to respond to that challenge by Lewis Archer. He's just set a 131.5, so I believe Lewis was maybe getting a little bit too close for comfort for Chris, so Chris has decided to turn on the afterburners and really gun it for the next couple of laps.
Yeah, we knew Chris had it in him. We knew he had these mid-31s, mid-31s. So maybe he was just sweating until he's like, okay, 6 or 5 second gap, and then I'll start to push it a little harder. But just conserve our gap until the end and let him use up all of his tires and energy trying to catch me, and then I'll save mine for defending.
Yeah,
he's turned it on here.
I believe Cesar Cabral is coming in for, would that be his second pit stop, I think? Which is, so. That's going to be an interesting decision. I wonder if that was with any damage, as it does look like he may have had an incident here. I wonder if this incident that he had when he spun it, let's go on board and see if we can find out. So coming through the chicane, he gets on the power, just catches the curb a little bit, and spins around, but it doesn't look like he had any damage, so interesting that he had to come in and pit for that. Maybe he's just pitting for some fresh tires, perhaps, and just being like, well, as long as I can get some fresh tires, maybe I can just make a push and really start to catch up to the other guys again.
Yeah, maybe he mined the gap between them. And he was like, I got a free pit stop, might as well take it.
Absolutely.
Here, Lewis finally making a move on Ivan. Gonna try to hopefully keep the inside here onto the last 3 corners.
Once again, it seems like a lot of these drivers are giving each other quite a wide berth, as, oh no, Lewis, unfortunately, a little bit too eager on the throttle there, spins out of the final corner and seemed to make contact with that tyre wall. I wonder if that's going to cause any damage to the front wing that we may not be able to see, but that's a bit of an unfortunate.
Skip the pits and test it out for another lap and see if maybe he can keep it going.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's not what we want to see, obviously, just any mistakes at all. It does cause a bit of an issue, as you go on later through the race. And I mean, what it's going to mean now is that with that, I mean, Ivan can probably just drive his race for the next, 6-7 laps here, and if he does, then he sort of has this P4 guaranteed. Probably not the pace to catch up to Carlos Gatao, at least not in the final couple of laps, as Chris Byram also has now started to set a gap as well. So Chris seeming to just get off the line really well, beat Carlos into turn 1, and since then, I mean, he's just been gone. Like, no one's really seemed to have a response for him this race.
Yeah, he had the big benefit of P2, 3, 4, 5, seems like all the way back to about P10, we're all fighting for position the first 4 or 5 laps, and allowed Chris to get the lead out to about 6 seconds. He kind of just conserved it the rest of the race. Made probably a pretty easy race for him. And then now, last couple laps, Archer turning it on, but so is Byram. They both ran a 31.4 last lap, it looks like. Or that's their best. I'm sorry, looking at the wrong one, but Archer back in the 31s. Chris Byram backed off a little bit to a 32. Still pretty good though. I don't think there's enough time unless really turns it on here. drops a 30 on us to really catch Chris.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where it's going to have to be, isn't it? If you're Ultra, it's going to have to be, I need to do qualifying laps now, basically, to catch. Or I need a mistake from Byram, because otherwise I'm just not going to be able to catch up to the back of him. And, you know, it's one of those races, I think, where Lewis can't really be that disappointed with how he's done. I mean, yes, he had a couple of mistakes, so maybe could have been closer to Byram, as we see Cesar Cabral doing a 1:31.4 and the fastest lap of the race. So, that's a little bit of him just showing off, hey, I still had the right pace to win this race. Unfortunately, he had a couple of mistakes, but, you know, I'm right up there with the top guys still. You know, don't count me out just yet.
Yeah, for the pit was forward to get some fresh rubber, maybe he's had a fast lap or something.
I think it's one of those things now that the race has sort of died off a little bit. You know, there's not that many people close, so... Although saying that, Lewis Archer has just answered back with a 1:31.34, and remember there is a 0.4 fastest lap of the race, so that's going to be very, very good. And if that continues, I think we're going to see, you know, maybe a couple of these top guys. I mean, depending on the gaps. I mean, if Archer pits for a fresh set of tires, which I can't see happening, I mean, that would put him behind Carlos Gasol, so probably not worth it. But if he does, then maybe he's going to go for a 1:30 here at the end of the race and show, hey, you know, if Byram, if you want to make a move for it, mate, you've got to come into the pits. You've got to maybe risk putting on a set of tires, maybe missing your pit stall or having a, you know, an unfortunate speeding penalty, and, you know, I'm going to put the pressure on. But yeah, I can't imagine Archer's going to be thinking that level. Yeah, I think he's just going to be putting through everything right now and just being like, well, you know, I'm out here, I'm on track, you know, I've got the fastest lap of the race so far. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for Byram to make a response, and if he doesn't, well, I'm just gonna lap my race, finish in P2, get that extra point, and that extra point's gonna be crucial. You know, every point counts and every point's gonna matter as we go into the later parts of the championship. You know, we've seen it before, so many championships coming down right to the last race, right to the last couple of points. You know, drivers tied on points into the final round, or drivers tied on points into, like, the second to last round, and, like, these last two rounds are going to be the most important rounds of the season. But then we've also seen it the other way around, of drivers, you know, partway through the season just absolutely going on a roll. A couple of tracks they really like, and they just perform really well, and that just puts them in a really good stead to just win everything and cause a championship to be quite dull. So I'm glad we haven't had that so far.
Yeah, and to this point, you know, we're still early, so Lewis, you gotta get those points. You have to assume it's gonna come down to, you know, a 1-point championship finish there. So especially when you see Caesar have a little bit of a tough day, he's had a decent rebound. Probably could have done a little better without that last spin, of course. But as Lewis, you know, you're P2, you got the fastest lap. That's solid points. Take advantage of the mistakes Caesar had. I would probably back it off and just run some 32s, kind of end the day out. But especially well, now he's got a challenge from Caesar for that fastest lap. So I guess Caesar maybe heard what I was saying, and he said, "Well, not so fast there, Lewis. Let me get that point back real quick." So we'll see if Lewis responds and tries another fastest lap, or he's just like, you know, fair play, I'll take my P2 and the points and not risk giving it up to Carlos, or God forbid, like, you hit the wall, give up a position to Ivan or somebody.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to get into that territory now, I think, where the drivers are just giving it everything they can. Every single lap is basically a quali lap while you're by yourself, you know, trying to get the fastest lap point as much as possible. We see Lewis Archer doing a 31.3, so really consistent laps, and then Carlos Gasol answering back doing the same sort of time. So Carlos, if he could have found maybe a tenth or two, would put himself in the fastest lap, but as we mentioned, Cesar Cabral currently holding it with a 1:31.22 at the moment, so unfortunately it looks like a lot of these guys are going to have to try and find one more tenth, which, you know, as the fuel starts to burn off, I mean, it's not out of the question. Especially if some of these guys, maybe, you know, like Chris Byram, for example, hasn't really had a reason to use DRS, so potentially that's what he's going to do. You know, save his DRS and treat it like a quali run with the added benefit of having that DRS near the end of the race, and just, you know, maybe final lap of the race, give it everything you can, and, know that you have it pretty much secured and just go for the fastest lap and go for broke.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that Chris Byram has had an off track, so I believe there's an extra point in a zero incident race. And so maybe there's a little bit of weighing the scores. I lay down the fastest lap.
Mm-hmm.
Go around the can. Get that extra point at the not running the fastest lap and also losing my point for off track.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, we do have an extra point for safest driver of the race as well as fastest driver of the race. So, you know, and it always seems to be prioritized on, or at least as far as I understand it, it seems to be prioritized on position. So it's, you know, whichever driver had the least amount of incidents that finished highest up the field. So if Byram has had 0 incident points, I mean, you know, that's something that he can think about, and he can be like, do I even need to go for fastest point? I mean, yes, I want to go for a clean sweep and, you know, get fastest lap point, you know, safest driver point, win the race, you know. Unfortunately, he couldn't have done the clean sweep of fastest in practice, quali, and the race as well, but, you know, you can't do everything, right?
He's done everything but that.
So we will see, I believe that is Ronald Mathot getting out of the way there, and being yet another car to be lapped. So we are now seeing up to P7 being lapped, so the pace from Byram is just absolutely crazy this race. Having a lot of clean air, so not having to worry about battling so much, which I think has helped massively. And Cesar Cabral, while we're talking about people having insane pace, well, he's just gone and done a 131.1. I mean, yes, he's on fresher tyres than everyone else, but I mean, that's still some incredible race pace. I mean, that's almost quali pace for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, he'll be in the. I suspect he'll be in the 30s before we wrap this one up. He's certainly out there to send the message, hey, you know, I didn't finish podium today, but I'm certainly a podium driver. So his win streak will come to an end, but he can still carry a lot of pride in his result today.
Yeah.
A few mistakes kept him out of it, but he certainly didn't pull over and just coast this race, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one driver whose streak hasn't come to an end is Carlos Catal's I want to be on the podium every single race streak, as it seems like he's going to end up the race in P3 as we, you know, only have 2 more laps to go of this race. So unless there's some sort of curse that gets played on him, I think he's going to be absolutely fine for that P3 once again. So 2 P2s and 2 P3s in the first 4 rounds. I mean, you can't really grumble at it, but Chris Byram also having some amazing results as well. I mean, I believe he had a race win as well, so, you know, it's going to be something that Byram's looking forward to. Potentially, with a win here at Imola, we may end up seeing him actually finish ahead of Cesar Cabral in the championships. And speaking of, was that Cesar Cabral that they just went past? No, I don't think it was. Sorry, that was not the U-Race Brazil paint. That was another driver, I believe that was Zach Pimenta down now. But here we go, final lap of the race for Chris Byram, and as I say, he sort of just kind of controlled the race. He hasn't really had any challenge. For him, it's, you know, in terms of the race interviews, he's probably just going to be, you know, we're going to talk to him and be like, hey, how did the race go? And he's probably just going to be like, well, you know, I led from the first corner, and since then, I didn't really see anyone.
Yeah. His opinion of the race was, it looked like a good race behind me, and that's all I saw of it, really. Watched him race as he drove off into the sunset, the cruise control, and cruise it on for the not the easy win, but certainly I made it look easy win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, a win in this series is never an easy win. You know, there's always a challenge involved somewhere. I mean, driving these cars so consistently for 41 laps, I mean, it's a challenge in itself. Add on to that the fact that, you know, potentially from the likes of Lewis Archer and Carlos Ghitao have had to battle their way up to the positions that they finished in as well. I mean, it's another level, I think, that these drivers have that just means that they're just going to have this level of consistency that seems to only be available to these top drivers. But Here we go, Chris Byram coming across the line to finish lap 41 here and to win the Imola Grand Prix. And I mean, again, and as I was saying, I said potentially Byram might want to do it, and he does indeed set the fastest lap of the race on the last lap with a 1:31.05. So if no one else is going for a faster lap like Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral, I mean, you know, if you're not already going for it, you've kind of lost it, right? with pace like that, as we will see Lewis Archer there go past in P2 and Carlos Catal finishing up in P3 for your podium results, and Ivan Bovekamp finishing here in P4. And again, an amazing result from Ivan Bovekamp to finish, you know, P4 after starting in 15th. You know, that's a really good result, and once again, going to be some very good results for him in the future. And then Luis Colon also coming home in 5th, with Cesar Cabral finally coming out of the final corner with that lovely U-Race Brazil paint. I must admit, that is a very nice livery. That nice blue there, blue and green. And as I say that, fastest lap, I said if you were going for it, you have a chance. And he went for it and did a 30.7, so Caesar with the fastest lap at the end there. And again,
what a last lap there. They're setting it on fire there. Caesar saw that pop up at 1:30.05 and he was like, I can do better. Let's out here for it.
But yeah, let's just go straight into the 1:30s. But that'll be that done for us. I mean, again, another amazing race, and this time no safety cars involved, which, you know, is a nice bonus. And I believe we will start getting in a couple of drivers here for the interviews, hopefully soon. But again, you know, it's one of those things that we've had. We've had an amazing race. I don't think anyone can be particularly disappointed with how the race went. You know, a couple of drivers maybe making a couple mistakes that they didn't really want to make. But it's one of those things, isn't it, where as a driver you're just now, you know, you're just happy that the race is over, and you may just be looking at that and debriefing what happens later down the line, as we will show you the official results here for the race as well.
Yeah, if you didn't get the result you wanted today, hopefully there's something you came away with from this weekend, from the week of practice of, you know, I got better, a little more used to the car, my competition, something you can take into next week, get a better result. You're always looking to do better than you did the week before. It's going to be hard for Chris Byram to do better than he did this week.
Absolutely.
But maybe he'll get that fastest lap next week.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he'll get the fastest lap. He'll get the fastest laps in practice and quali as well, and do a clean sweep. But that'll be the only way he can improve. But speaking of the man, let's try and bring him in here to get him involved with a little bit of a interview. Chris Byram, welcome in, mate. Another win for yourself. So how was that race for you?
Pretty good, mate. Pretty good. Considering I haven't practiced all week, I've not been well all week. So only practice I got was practice session today. So yeah, well chuffed with that. How quickly I got up to speed and undefeated in the F2 round Imola. So yeah, well chuffed.
Well, that is certainly an amazing record to have, but unfortunately not fastest lap at the end. You gave it a good go with the 1:31.05, but unfortunately Caesar did take it in the end with a 30.7, I believe. So
I was trying, but I didn't want to. I was, to be fair, my pace was, well, not slow, obviously not slow, but I was really taking it cautious. Like,
yeah,
I know I had like 10 seconds to Lewis, and I was happy with that. Sort of coming down to 5. I know he was pushing, but yeah, I didn't want to push too hard. I saved all my DRS for the end just to try and get a good lap, but I didn't want to take the sort of risks that I took in qualifying. So tried, but I think I'll get safest. So I picked up time 0, so I'll get a point for safest driver, I hope. So yeah, not all lost.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be nice, obviously, with the, as you say, the safest driver point on top of, you know, winning the race. It's all nice stuff to have, and hopefully brings the gap down between yourself, Carlos, and Caesar a little bit more, with Caesar not having the greatest race himself. So hopefully the
Where did he
championship looks a little bit more spicy.
Where did he end up finishing?
P6. So Caesar finished P6 in the end.
So
So that'll be quite a significant cut into his championship standings, and Carlos finishing P3. So
I should at least take P2 back in the championship, shouldn't I? I would have thought.
I will hold judgment on that one. My mental maths is not that good yet.
Oh no,
But,
because he did. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Either way, it's a good result. So well chuffed with it after a couple of disappointing rounds. So
yeah, absolutely. But again, congratulations, mate. P1. Can't ask for much more than that. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you back again next week. And
not next week, the week
next
after.
week, the week after. Yep, we do have a 1 week break. These 1 week breaks, man, they throw me. But,
you deserve them, mate, for all the hard work you put in. So no, thanks to you, and thanks to all the admins that make the league run really, really smoothly, and all the practice sessions they put up as well. So it's a fantastic league to be in. So thanks to everyone, and take care.
Yeah, and yourself, mate. See you later.
Congratulations. No practice, huh? That was shocking to hear.
Yeah, no practice at all, and he ends up winning the race. I mean, that is one heck of a drive, but
Little humble brag flex at the end.
but let's hear from our man who finished P3 once again on the podium, and that would be Carlos Gatau. Hey, Carlos. Once again, P3, so back-to-back P3s, and your streak of finishing on the podium every race continues. And you came in for quite an early pit stop, I noticed. Was that planned, or was that due to damage?
Yeah, I had contact. Well, first of all, good afternoon. I had damage with or contact with Ivan, and I picked up a little bit of damage. So I decided I was already in my pit window, so I decided better just pit right now, and make use of the quick repair to repair any damage I might have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it meant that you finished P3 again, so cutting into that deficit with Cesar Cabral, who finished P6. So again, in terms of how it looks for you, I mean, you're gaining points on the guy ahead of you in the championship. Yes, you're still looking for a win, and obviously going to be wanting that, but yeah, you can't be too disappointed, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, well, you obviously, if you have anyone in front of you, you're always a bit disappointed. But considering I haven't had much time to practice, I only did a few laps this morning, and then the practice session for the race itself. So I didn't have much time to mess with the setup or anything. I just tried to get used to the track and the car. I don't think I've ever raced this car here. So I mean, disappointed because I didn't win, but at the same time pretty satisfied considering the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say that you may not have raced this car on this track before, but how did the car feel for yourself? It looked as though obviously off the start it looked like you lost a few positions, as though you may have been potentially running a bit less downforce or a bit more downforce than a couple of the other guys around you. But it looked like, early on, maybe not as comfortable with the car.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the lack of practice, my goal is just to take it easy and not spin, especially at the chicane at the top of the hill, the Variante Alta. Like, it's very easy to spin there, and a couple of guys did it. I did it myself in the practice session, so I was just trying. There's a couple of tracks there as well that are easy to pick up. So I just tried to take it easy, and you can lose like a few tenths there if you don't take the corner right. But I decided to just do that instead of risking losing 5 seconds because I spun, or even worse, like damaging the car and everything. So that was my logic here. The car definitely didn't feel as good as I was aiming for, but I just picked the setup and messed it around quickly, and then just decided to run laps with it instead of messing with it like I usually do throughout the week.
Yep. But I mean, hey, even with that, still finishing P3, so picking up quite a few points in the championship, and definitely cementing yourself as a driver who likely to finish top 3 of the championship. Couldn't imagine finishing much lower, so always good again to hear from you.
I can still imagine myself finishing P1 only, so
Absolutely love to hear that. Trying to make sure you can push as much as you can, and you're gonna need a couple of race wins to do it, but you've got the pace, you've definitely shown it, so
we should be pretty tight right now, right? The 3 of us. Maybe. I
yeah,
think
I
now
mean,
Caesar finished P6 and then Chris got the win and I finished in the middle, so I think maybe the order is reversed now and we're all pretty close maybe.
I
Again.
don't have the championship points right now, but I definitely think it will be a lot closer than it was. I think
Yeah.
Lewis taking P2 is obviously going to be pushing him closer as well to the group.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, that's going to be, I think, a nice battle to look for as we get near the end of the race. Obviously, he did miss the first round, but Lewis seems to have the pace to continue on, maybe battling for you guys up there, and maybe making it a four-way championship fight between yourself, Cabral, Byram, and Archer.
Yeah, for sure. I hope I could see Good Neck there as well, but unfortunately he had a spin or a crash. So yeah. But I hope I can race with him again like I did in Brazil, and hopefully can join the championship for a 5-way fight. Same as Luis Colon, maybe we got a 6-way fight for the win, then it's the more the merrier for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us as commentators as well, it makes an amazing experience. When we're seeing 6 cars all battling for the same piece of tarmac, it's absolutely amazing stuff, and definitely stuff that we look forward to seeing week in and week out. But thanks again, mate, and once again, congratulations to your P3.
Thank you, and congrats on the broadcast. Awesome as always.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.
See you later. So that was Carlos, and one thing we will do before we leave is I do actually want to take a look here at what happened with Cesar Cabral off the start. I know not necessarily having the result that he would have liked, and I want to try and figure out what was it that happened off the start that caused him to have the issue that he did. So we'll go on board with him off the start of the race and try and figure out what caused the issue. So and then after that, I mean, that'll be us. And once again, thank you very much to my co-commentator Anthony for joining me in the booth. It was an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can see you back in the future as well.
Yeah, I hope to make an appearance anytime I can. It's fantastic, fun getting to watch a race with you, get to hear your commentary, discuss what's going on and everything. You put on a heck of a show up here. I'd say you're just as good as the guys on the track. It was a pleasure being up here with you.
Thank you very much, mate. I do very much doubt myself sometimes, but hey, don't we all? We're all perfectionists in this field. That's why we love to do what we do. We try and put on as good of a show as we can for the people watching, the lovely community that we've got here. If you want to get yourself involved, obviously come in, join us on the Discord, join us on the website as well, www.iFormulaLeague.com. But let's take a look at what happened here with Cesar Cabral before we head off. So, see what happened. The lights come on, shifts into gear, he's revving up. It looks like it was just a massive burnout, honestly. And he never really got off the line, and everyone else just went past him. Looks like it was just a massive load of wheel spin, and that caused him to lose, so many positions off the start. But, yeah, obviously unfortunate for him, but, hey, that's how racing goes sometimes. But he did recover for P6, so managed to, hold himself off the championship. But that'll about cover it for us here with the iFormula League. And once again, F2 puts on a show. I mean, this is starting to become my favorite part of the week, absolutely. With the F2 putting on such a great show, it means that the F3 guys and the F1 guys also need to step up, because if not, these F2s, man, they'll be in the best part of the weekend. I'm just saying.
They've certainly put on a heck of a beginning of the season. First couple weeks have been fantastic to watch. Close racing, clean racing, very respectable.
Yeah.
And we'll have the week off, and then we're right back at it. I'll be in the F3 tomorrow, so hopefully I can put on half the show they did today. Hopefully I don't find one of these walls or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Try and make yourself nice and cozy. But yeah, as I say, we do have a week off, and then the next week after that, we are going to the Hungaro Ring, and then the week after that, we are off to the Circuit of the Americas for the next couple of rounds, which will be round 5 and 6. And then after that, it'll be Monza and Spa, then Watkins Glen and Hockenheim. And we're looking at Red Bull Ring, the Canadian GP circuit, Zandvoort, and then Silverstone to end out the season. So still a lot of rounds to go, and the championship is just getting started. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. I've been Alyssa, that's been Anthony, and we'll see you all next time.